As a professional colorist, my job is not just to make something look cool or look pretty. It's a technical, ethical, and collaborative responsibility. What I want to talk about today is a commercial starring Saquon Barkley of the Philadelphia Eagles. A commercial like this one with an NFL star, it costs a significant amount of money. But when the finish was compromised, that investment was immediately devalued. The result is a color grade that is disrespectful to that talent. And not just what's on screen, all of the talented people behind the scenes that brought this commercial to life. A primary goal when shooting any commercial is the on-screen talent. In this case, it's Saquon Barkley, a world-class athlete, but also a pool of actors who are playing journalists or otherwise in the media. On the day, the crew makes lens choices, lighting choices, wardrobe choices, hair and makeup choices, all of which combine to make the best possible image, to make every single one of our actors look their best. After we wrapped, the footage was copied to hard drives and sent off to another team that was in charge of both the edit and the post-production. Now, let's take a look at what actually aired. The first thing that hits you is probably the technical execution. The shadows are a weird color, and they're kind of like pink or purple. All the detail that we kind of really worked hard to maintain on the day is kind of gone. The white balance is inconsistent somehow, shifting from like this cool green to this like warmer magenta from like one shot to the next. The most egregious flaw is the way that the talent has been treated. Look at Saquon's skin tone. That's not even remotely close to accurate. The lighting we provided, which was warm, flattering, kind of shaped his face, honored the skin tone, has been turned into this weird greenish sickly color. And this is a major point of contention because when the skin tone falls apart like this, the audience immediately loses trust. But I just want to be very clear when I say that this failure is not a matter of bad taste. It's a failure of process. All right, so look, let's just say they ran out of time completely. What was done, and they had to ship what they had. Okay, fine. But what if they had just 1 hour? During my time as a cinematographer, I always provided my own on-camera monitor, and I did this because I have it customized to the way that I like it, and that familiarity with the gear, it just made my job easier on the day. But it also allowed for a redundant copy of all the media to be recorded. So should anything happen to the camera's internal memory cards or even the hard drives during transit, there was always a backup copy. And because of this failsafe, I was able to reconstruct this commercial shot for shot. And I'm going to regrade it in under 1 hour. All right, so from an editorial perspective, we've gotten this spot in here, and I just want to show you really quickly, for the sake of comparison, that these shots are generally 1-to-1. Now, you'll see some reframing that was done. I'm going to ignore that in this particular instance. So as I go through here, you'll see that these shots are, generally speaking, 1-to-1, or as close as I could get them. Under the assumption that they were very pressed for time, I think what an editor would have done is probably put this under the RE K1 S1. Usually editors do this on like a timeline level or like an adjustment clip level. And we're going to put the K1 S1 on here. So if we play this back now, say this just had to go with just this LUT on it, I think you can see that we're in a much, much better spot already. It looks much more harmonious, much more balanced. There are some differences in exposure. Like look at that frame, and then if you look at Saquon's tight, it's definitely a little warmer, and that's due to the glass and not being able to take the time to kind of dial that out on the day. But these are little things that I know from shooting. I know why these decisions were made, and I also know why there are some color discrepancies. So that informs how we're going to move forward. I'm going to take this adjustment clip off, lock that so that we don't accidentally apply color to it, and we're going to get started here. Now I'm going to assume that this spot came in. I've spent 10 minutes getting it in and getting it in ready for color. So I'm actually going to put the timer for 50 minutes, assuming that we spent 10 doing the conform. So I'm going to start right now. 50 minutes on the clock. We're going to get started with a base look. I'm going to use a commercial node tree that I use all the time. Our IDT is going to be set to Sony. And these were shot on Sonys. We're going to go up to DaVinci Wide Gamut, and we're going to come back down to 70924. And on the timeline level, we're going to be probably using a film emulation, more specifically for some color and just reining in some of those tones a little bit closer to one another, but I'm not going to do that yet. This is probably a good place to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this still. That's going to serve as our base look, and I'm going to apply that to the rest of the spot. And there we go. So now if we play this back, it looks pretty similar to the adjustment clip version that we did, and it's a good looking spot to start for sure. There are some things that we can fix, some things that we're going to fix, and we're going to get started with that right now. So first and foremost, I'm going to be using the false color here, nice and big on this monitor. There's actually two running at the same time through Knob Omni Scope, but I'm just going to keep it a little larger on this one so we can blitz through this as fast as possible. And I want to get all of our skin exposures, generally speaking, the same. That's kind of the mark of a good, well-exposed commercial, is when all your skin tones and your skin exposures are consistent. So, knowing that there was some challenges on the day with time, differences in complexion, I'm just going to go through here and kind of even everything out. I'm aware of the challenges on set, not only because I was there, but because of my previous life as a cinematographer, so really gives me some good insight as to what happened, why decisions were made, especially when looking at actors in different wardrobes. Maybe there are different complexions. You know, there's things on set you do to accommodate for those things. And I think it's particularly helpful when your colorist knows that. So we're just going to get everything balanced here. Don't worry about the contrast yet. That's probably the same shot. Here it is. Just going to get everything seated in a good starting place. Really want to keep this consistent throughout. Alright, just lifting the skin here, just so it feels the same. That's probably the same shot. Here's a different one on our anchor here, or whatever he is, journalist maybe. That's pretty close. Yeah, the angle's changed, but overall it feels pretty close. And the false color kind of tells us that too. All right. Okay, this shot's a bit down. I know that we didn't accommodate for this shot because she only had about one line, and most of it was just reactions. So, and it was shot very quickly. I mean, a few minutes. Could we have lifted on the day? Yes, but we were pressed for time. So, oftentimes it's more important to keep the rhythm of the day moving so that your actors don't get tuned out or your director doesn't get impatient, knowing that you can just make a little bit of an adjustment in post to accommodate for the challenge you were experiencing on set. So, all right, let's go ahead and get our contrast dialed in here. Make sure our flashes don't go haywire, but this should sit really nicely. Maybe a little bit too much. And let's bring up some more exposure here. There we go. Okay. And I suspect we'll need some more exposure here, but let's just get this feeling pretty good first. Adjusting all of our exposure on a node that's whose gamma is swung to linear, and that gives us the ability to adjust the exposure photometrically, as if we're changing the exposure in camera, except we're doing it in post, which is pretty rad. It also lets you do some white balance changes that feel like they were done in camera rather than in post. Kind of keeps everything behaving as if it just came off the sensor that way. There we go. And that's probably the same shot. We'll just copy that over. And I think these are probably going to be the more challenging of the shots because these were shot on different cameras. So you can kind of see that some of the color is a little bit different. But no biggie. No biggie. We can certainly dial that in or out. So let's take a look at these three together. Make sure we're relatively consistent. That feels pretty good. Pretty good to start. I love this shot. I don't know why. I think it's very beautifully done. I like all the color contrast that's in there. Yeah, looks great. Okay. So we're just chipping away here. Man, look at that contrast. Just snap in. That's fantastic. This is the benefit of working with good cinematographers. Your images tend to just snap right into where they should be with good exposure done on set. So in terms of a starting point, this is well above average for sure. I'll take a little bit more. Probably going to end up windowing him, but for the sake of getting this dialed in, there we go. That's definitely a different camera system. Yeah, when you shoot with intention, your colorist will love you. That is for sure. You know, that's definitely a bit warm. But that's okay. That's okay. That's probably the same shot. Okay, cool. So we're getting there. We're making some good progress here. So let's address the white balance on our Saquon shots. We're going to make a new group. We'll just call this new group Saquon. There we go. Now in our group, we can just look at all of these shots. And this illustrates the color discrepancies that I was mentioning before. And I think some global changes are going to be the best way to do this first. We can always adjust the skin, but we really want to get the overall image feeling closer. So let's assume that this is correct. So we'll make this our reference image. We'll grab that. And I'm mostly looking at the step and repeat behind Saquon. So let's play that. And we'll slide that over a little bit. Yeah, so it's a little bluer. Let's just go through here and compare. That's the same shot. And that is much warmer, except for when the flashes go off. In fact, the whole shot's warmer. But this is a good way to get an idea. what you're working with. So let's do it this way. Worry about this shot. That's reflected light. That's also a little bit more reflected. But let's do some tiny amounts. That feels better already. There we go. And again, we're just keeping an eye on that background. Maybe a point of cyan. It feels better. That's probably the same shot. There we go. That's the same shot. There we go. Okay, so now let's look at all these. All right, so we're closer. We're much, much closer. I'm going to take 2 quarter points out of these shots. And I'm thinking that might be getting us in the pocket here. Okay, so now let's go back and through his shots, and let's get that key a little bit more consistent. I'm going to flip over to the gain and pull this up. That's going to help us dial in our key as well as our background. It's going to do a little bit of double duty. Same shot. Same shot. There we go. All right, let's play all these back. So much tighter. This is probably a little cool, but really happy with where that's ending up. Put 2 quarter points back into that. Red and yellow. Let's watch this back to back now. Yeah, that's so much tighter than where we were. So let's go back, play this whole clip down, whole spot down. And his skin tone looks very accurate. So let's just look at our film emulation here. We're going from 709 to sitting on film. We're under the Kodak 2383 at 65. So that's good. Probably a little bit strong. We're going to come back down here to the output. Drop that to 0.25. So that's putting just a touch of blue in the shadows, which I want. A little bit of warmth in the highlights. Let's audition that across the whole spot. It's a very nice little touch there. That looks particularly good on Saquon. Just gives a little life to his skin and to the background. So far I'm digging this. we can always snap that off. Let's continue as if we like that, because I'm kind of digging it. So, all right, let's go and start shaping this. I've got 25 minutes and 5 seconds left. I want to knock this table down. This table is considerably brighter than our talent, so I want to just knock that down. We're just going to do that. I don't want to go too crazy, but oftentimes it's better to go too far and come back than it is to go too little and wish you went further. And I might call him out. Let's just see what this looks like. Let's do a circle grad here. And I think I might just want to pull him out just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. There we go. No, he's kind of separated a little bit. He's really blending into that dark background. All right, moving on. That looks good so far. That's probably pretty good. Third shot. Do we like that kicker? I think we probably like that kicker. Okay, let's do this. We're going to take the whole reporter pen and we're going to group that together. Then we can see them. Reporters. There we go. Get that new group. Reporters. Now we can do this much easier. I just want to pull him out a little bit from the rest of the pen. And I think I want to do that. His exposure on his face looks good. But let's do an inverted window. Again, this is already preset. It's just kind of how I like to do things. And we'll just call him out a little bit. Drop the sharpness down a little bit. Okay. And we'll just drop the rest of the pen down a little bit. We're just going to add some richness to this image, this shot. Really allows us to focus a little bit more on him. That's nice. Maybe we'll do a skin pull on him. But let's get through this quickly. It's probably the same shot. Apply that. This shot looks beautiful. Let's just do a little bit more contrast and even out the exposure on these two. So let's do a left grad. We'll just cut the frame down the center. Maybe add a little bit more softness so that it just blends a little bit better. And then we'll just drop that down. Nice. See how that evens out the whole shot? I mean, that's off. That's on. And that really evens out that shot. It makes it look more purposeful. Might be a little bit much. Add one more point of exposure there. That looks great. And then let's just take a little bit out of the bottom. And it's going to shape them a little bit. Beautiful. Moving on. Okay, we've got this reporter here. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to drop that down to like 12 or something. And we're just going to ISO him a little bit with a natural looking grad. There we go. That's off. That's on. And it just pulls the eye to him. All right, back to our reporter from earlier. And let's do the same thing. You call him out. You're going to be seeing a lot of the same stuff here now. We're down to the wire. We got to make this look as good as possible in a very, very truncated timeline. I don't know if I'm going to like the circuit. You know what? I'm going to do this with a grad. So let's not, we're going to forget about that. Do this with an angled grad. I just want to drop the exposure of our foreground talent so that we pay more attention to our reporter here. It's his reaction we're focused on. That feels better. There we go. That really helps us focus on him. And lastly, we've got our back row reporter. This one's a little bit warm. Let's take 3/4 points. 2/4 points out. Add 1/4 point of cyan. And then, you guessed it, inverted power window. We're going to go very soft on her. Very, very soft. And drop that down. A little bit of sat out of there. Keep those skin tones in check. There we go. Beautiful. All right, 16 minutes. Let's go to the Saquon clips. Let's make sure our background is looking correct. All right, so our left background is hitting about 70. Center is about 78, 79. So let's grab that. Just gonna be pulling the highs on this. There we go. Get that up to 70-ish. Maybe some noise reduction on that shot. Let's take a look at that noise reduction again. Yeah, that cleans up nicely. 12 minutes. Let's just double check our skin while we can. Yeah, all that looks pretty good. Good healthy range there. I'm just pulling these keys here really quickly, and that one's just a little bit pink. Okay. So let's do, instead of doing that on a key, we're going to do that in a hue shift. And we will do some red to yellow. All right, cool. So final touches. All right, what are we going to do? What can we do? Let's pull a key on him. Maybe add a little bit of sat to him. Yeah, it's very subtle, but he definitely looks better. Let's get through the Saquon material again. And for these, let's just pull him out just a little bit by dropping that table down. Probably the same thing with this shot here. We still need to deliver this. We've got 7.5 minutes left. Let's do one final touch. We're going to put a little bit of film grain on there. Turn our grain engine on. And we're going to turn this strength to 0.35. And then lastly, let's try to warm up his skin in this shot. A little bit on the pink side. I'm going to do this globally, and then I'm going to limit it. I'll track him so that the correction only occurs on him. All right, cool. There we go. So if you look at his face, it's a little bit on the paler side now. And we just warm that up just a little bit. All right, so 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes. Have to deliver this file. Should we call her out a little bit more? I think we have to. And we probably gotta hit that little noise reduction. There we go, that cleans it nicely. Beautiful. Okay, so let's treat this as if it's for real. Saquon Pure Color Master. What was this delivered? UHD? 1920. DNHR. Bam. Yep, 444, 12-bit video, 2.4. Okay, and render. So, overall, I think this spot was shot very well. And because it was shot very well, we were able to get in here and get this thing colored and looking really, really nicely in 50 minutes. And if we were to compare this version of this spot to the one that's currently airing, I think you'd see a pretty remarkable difference. This looks great. Okay, and pause. So we got about 1:15 to go. With a spot this large, it would probably only take about 1:15 seconds to actually deliver over the internet. You know, I would use Massive and just kick this thing really quickly over to them. And that's it. That's our spot. 50 minutes gave us enough opportunity to really land in a better spot overall. And I'm really pleased with where this ended up, and I think the DP would be pretty pleased with where this ended up as well. Okay, so where do we net out? Well, the original, I believe, is a commercial that looks amateur, inconsistent, and disrespectful to the talent. And what we just did here, I believe, is the exact same commercial, as close as I could get it, that is more polished, professional, and worthy of broadcast during a Super Bowl. The difference is not just in the color and the hues and the tones and whatnot. The difference between these two spots is the standard of professional care that was applied in the final stage. So what we've really tried to do here in the color suite is create images that uphold the professional integrity of the crew, the cast, Saquon himself, and most importantly, the brand. What is airing currently right now, I think, is unfortunately a failure to meet that standard. What are the key takeaways here? Why did I make this video? Well, it wasn't just to take shots at somebody else's work. That's not the reason I made this at all. I made this video as a cautionary tale to all my fellow creators, whether you're producers or directors of photography, if you work at agencies, if you're in marketing. This is really what I want you to know. Color correction is not an optional polish. What it is a collaborative and specialized step of the finishing process. You invest tens of thousands of dollars into getting these images right on the day. You pick the locations, you work with the studios, cast everything up, you crew everything up, you do all your pre-pro, everything that you need to do to get into your shoot day. Your crew kills it on the day, and then at the very last step, this is what can happen. Don't lose that investment by handing your footage off to a novice or somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. Always budget for and hire a professional colorist. The colorist is your final advocate. We, as colorists, want to make sure we deliver the highest level of work possible. That directly reflects onto you and the product that you delivered. And trust me, we want it to look awesome. But most importantly, what we really do is we ensure that all of the care that you took leading up to and including your shoot day or days makes it to the screen intact. So if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for taking everything I'm saying into consideration. I really hope that you got at least something out of this that you can take onto your next job. And until next time, I will see you in the color suite.